Welcome to the Pod Squad, a podcast brought to you by the pupils of Scoil Cholmcille, Letterkenny, our platform to explore, learn and have fun.
In this episode, we talk to Mr. Paraig Cannon, our principal here at Scoil Cholmcille, Letterkenny.
Okay, so today we're very excited to welcome our principal, Mr. Paraig Cannon, to the podcast. As the leader of our school, Mr. Cannon plays a huge role in shaping our daily experiences and helping our school grow. Today, we'll get the chance to learn more about him, from why he became a teacher and principal to what he was like as a pupil and even some of his favourite things outside of school. We've got a mix of serious and fun questions lined up today, so let's get started and find out more about the person behind the principal's office door. So let's begin with our first interviewer. So it's over to you, Jaden.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, good morning, Jaden. Well, I was born in Letterkenny, so my roots are in Letterkenny, and I come from a family of 6, and I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters. And I come from an area that's about a 10 minutes walk from the school, and it was a great area growing up because unlike today where family sizes are very small, when I was growing up, family sizes were very big. So in all of the houses around me, there might have been 7, 8, 6 children in every house. So I had a host of friends of my age, or maybe a year younger. And we never spent any time in our houses. Houses were places where you slept and where you ate and where you did your homework. Because you see, we spent all our time outdoors. And for example, at this time of year, we would have been actually playing football out in a field called McKendrick's Field. And that field was actually just behind our back gardens. So all the boys would regroup at about 5:30 in the evening, and we would play football over and back. We'd put our jerseys just down for our goalposts, and we'd be playing football there until about 9:30 in the evening, until our parents called us in. And we're always disappointed when our parents called us in. But, you know, other things that we actually did as children is we would have gathered conkers up in St. Connell's. We would have played marbles on the green outside our houses. We would have gone nest hunting in the spring. And there was always a competition between the different groups of boys in the area to find out how many nests each had gathered. So it was really a lovely place to grow up in as a child. So then I suppose my educational journey then, or my school journey, started when I was 3.5 years of age. And would you believe it, all the infant boys from Letterkenny town at that time, they started junior infants and senior infants in Scoil Cholmcille. Because at that time, none of the infant boys were taught in the Scoil Cholmcille, even though we were enrolled for Scoil Cholmcille. And I remember in senior infants, I looked out the window one day and I saw this magnificent white horse, and it absolutely captivated me. And the horse belonged to a group of travellers who had just encamped in a commonage area there. And I remember looking out at this white horse, and I could see its tail swishing and it nibbling the grass. And I was about 5.5 years of age, and the next thing I was on the horse, and I was galloping along the edge of a river, and the forest was to the left-hand side, and there I was on this beautiful white stallion, and the next thing I heard was, "Paraig Cannon, get down from that window!" And I said, "Jeepers," I says, "that's the teacher." And I had to get back to reality again. And then every day after that, I tried to seize any opportunity to get out of my seat as a 5.5-year-old to see my white horse. And then one day, I looked out the window and the horse was gone. But after senior infants then, we were marched down to Scoil Cholmcille, to the boys' school. And we spent 4 years there, up until 5th class. And then a really important event happened in 5th class for us. We were being moved over to the new school. And do you know where the new school was? Here. It was this actual building. So we came here as the first 5th class pupils, and it was a magnificent big room, plenty of light and internal toilets, and we thought it was absolutely fantastic. And then after having spent then the 2 years here in the primary school, we went to St. Eunan's College and I spent about 6 years there. including transition year, and I met lots of lovely friends there, and we had some really, really good teachers, and I came out with a really good leaving cert, very good for me, and I was very pleased. And then I went then to what was called Teacher Education College, and that was a third level college that prepared you to become a primary teacher. And then, would you believe it, when I finished my Bachelor of Education degree in the Teacher Education College, I came back to Scoil Cholmcille as a primary teacher. My first permanent post was here in the school, and I taught then for about 9 years. And in between those 9 years, I did a 3-year degree in philosophy in 1 year in Maynooth University. I studied theology in the Gregorian University in Rome, and I also did a master's in education in the University of Ulster. So after all that study, I've got something stuck in my throat here. After all that study, I then got a job, would you believe it, as a teacher in third level. And the name of the teacher in third level is called lecturer. So I became a lecturer in education in St. Pat's Teacher Education College. And then 2 years later, I was appointed then Director of Teaching Practice in a different teacher education college. And I had 7 wonderful years there, and I was preparing students, they were between 18 and 40 years of age, to become primary school teachers. And then in 2007, a vacancy came up here in the school for principalship, and I decided to apply for it, and I did, and I got it, and here I am today.
All right. What made you become a teacher and later a principal?
Well, you know, in many ways, I think actually teaching came to me. It kind of landed on my lap in many ways, because I was visited with by a lot of surprises, really. And I suppose the first surprise was when I was 16 years of age, and I had the lead role in a musical called My Fair Lady, and it was a production between the Loretto Convent and St. Eunan's College. And both principals, would you believe it, came to me within the same week, and they said, Paraig, you know, you would make a great primary school teacher. And those were the first seeds that were planted in terms of me thinking about primary teaching. The second surprise was that to get into college to become a primary teacher, you had to do an English interview, an Irish interview, and a music interview, or a music test. And I did those, and I had never studied music before, so the music was very difficult. But anyway, I got that, and I got into college, and I was very surprised about that. And then when I was in college then, my first year, we all had to go out and do an examination called Teaching Practice. So it was helping us to prepare for the reality of teaching in the primary classroom. And I remember my first teaching practice, and I discovered I really enjoyed it. You know, I worked very hard in it, but it gave an awful lot back to me. And then at the end of that year, there was 140 in my year, and 140 were called into this big hall, and the results of our teaching practice was called out. And I couldn't believe that I got the top marks. I got something like 94%, the first place, and I was really surprised at that. And I went on then to actually be awarded the gold medal for teaching at the end of my year in third year, and I was also surprised about that. So I suppose between the faith that the lecturers had in me in terms of my ability to teach and my love of teaching, that decided why I wanted to become a primary school teacher.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon.
You're welcome.
I'm going to pass you on to Philip now.
Good morning, Philip.
Good morning. What was your favourite subject in school and why?
Well, my favourite subjects in secondary school was Latin and Irish and history and French. I didn't really have a favourite subject in primary school, but I had a favourite time. And my favourite time in primary school, would you believe it, was reading. And it went as far back as the very first day that I arrived in the boys' school in first class, the very first day, and we had this teacher. Now, the teacher was a presentation brother, and a presentation brother, you may not know who these men were. They were all teachers, but first of all, they were men, but secondly, they were religious, and they would have devoted their entire lives to God, to prayer, and to the education of boys in Ireland. So I had only presentation brothers whenever I was in primary school. But the very first presentation brother that I had was a brother Columba. Big tall man, big white thatch of hair, and a big black frock coat from his chin right down to his polished shoes. And I remember in the afternoon of the first day, he just outreached his full arm and he put in what had looked like about 100 Ladybird books. And then he just licked his thumb and he slapped the Ladybird books in a horseshoe shape around our class, just around the periphery of the classroom. And then he called us out by name and we could select whatever book we wanted. And I remember getting The Little Red Hen, and the following day getting the 3 Billy Goats Gruff, and then getting the 3 Little Pigs, and then getting the Giant Turnip. And I was absolutely lit with that because that was my favourite time. And funny, the love of the short story transferred there when I went into secondary school, because when we were doing the intermediate, which is now called the Junior Cert, we were introduced in our English programme to a collection of Irish writers. They were short story writers, and people like, for example, Mary Lavin. You had people like, for example, Beacon. You had Brian Friel. You had Liam O'Flaherty. You had Frank O'Connor. And I loved the short story, and that transferred to Irish and to French. So the short story really was my favourite. Yeah.
What kind of pupil were you when you were our age?
Well, I was the same as every other pupil, Philip, would you believe it? Because at that time, we all learned to be the same. Remember, it was a very different Ireland, and we had a very different relationship with our teachers than you have with your teachers. And at that time, there was something in the classroom that's not in the classroom today. Do you know what it was? It was the stick, okay? There was a stick in every single classroom. Not every teacher used it, but we did see the stick being used, and the stick was used to discipline. And it was probably there to discipline maybe bad behaviour, but unfortunately, sometimes it was used if pupils didn't know their spellings or their reading. So to be very honest with you, we made sure to keep our heads down when we were in class, because we had half an eye on the stick, and if the stick was resting on the sill at the bottom of the blackboard, we were happy. But at that time, there was no focus on your personality. There was no focus on your kind of strengths. Like, we would never have heard teachers kind of praising us or telling us, oh, you're very creative, or you're very imaginative, or you're very artistic, or you're very good at maths. We never really heard those things. So we didn't really have a developed sense of who we were as pupils whenever I was going to school and whenever I was your age, which is 12 years of age. But I do remember that I loved coming to school, and I really enjoyed school. Despite that, I really enjoyed coming to school, and I would have missed it.
Do you have any funny or embarrassing school memories?
I don't have any embarrassing memories, but I do remember in 3rd class, and nothing really happened in the classrooms, Philip. It was all very much the same, day in and day out. You know the way, like, you've got visitors coming in, you've got speakers coming in. Our day was fairly mundane, it was fairly boring. But anyway, this day, it was in May, and a knock came to the door, and we all turned around to see who was at the door, and it was a mammy. And the mammy was looking for her boy. Now, this is in 3rd class. And she was bringing her boy to the dentist. But the boy wasn't in the classroom. So while he left the house that day, he didn't come to school. So she was there saying, right, okay, thank you. So we were all wondering, what is going to happen to this boy? Let's call him John. So the following day, anyway, John came into school, and we were all asking him, where were you? Where were you? And we got into the classroom, and of course all eyes was on the teacher, and the teacher said, John, come up here please. And John came up, and he was very kind of like nervous, and the teacher said, where were you yesterday? And John said, I was in O'Donnell Park. What were you doing in O'Donnell Park? I was up a tree. I was up a tree. And what were you doing up a tree? I was reading my Irish book. We thought that was hilarious because John was not reading his Irish book. His Irish book was well in his bag. So that was probably one of the funniest memories I've had. Yeah.
That's all I got for you today.
Oh, thank you.
Hello.
Hello, Arthur. How are you today?
Yeah, good.
Good.
How are you?
I'm very well.
Right. What do you like to do when you're not in school?
Okay, so I love outdoor sports. Once I get on my mountain boots, I'm in heaven. So I've been very lucky. I've been able to climb all the mountains in Donegal. I've climbed Ben Nevis in Scotland. I've climbed the Alps in Germany. So that's probably my first favourite pastime. Second one is I love cycling. I love getting on the helmet and going out with a friend or two, or even with my own sons, and with beautiful cycle routes around where I live. So I love cycling. And would you believe it or not, I love sea swimming. So I always start in the sea around May, and this year, of course, with the good weather, I didn't have to get the wetsuit on. And I love gardening, yeah. And then when I can't do those kinds of things indoors, I probably spend more time reading. And I love most things to do with Irish culture. So I love the Irish language, I love Irish music, I love the wooden flute in particular. So those are the kinds of things I enjoy doing.
Right. If you weren't a principal, what job would you like to
Well,
do?
would you believe it? Since I was knee-high, do you know the job that I wanted to do? I wanted to study wild animals, and they call it a wildlife biologist or a zoologist. And for years, I wanted to be actually studying the elephant and the giraffe, and not in a university. I wanted to actually go to the plains of Africa, and I wanted to be with them. I wanted to study them, and I wanted to see how they interacted with their environment. So for me, being in amongst those wild animals was what I wanted to do in life. And it's funny, when I was a student teacher, I got this opportunity to go to Kenya, and it was part of a development education project. But anyway, I went to safari, and it was probably one of the 4 most exciting days in my life, because when we got on to safari, there were thousands and thousands of wildebeest, and they were travelling up from actually Tanzania, and they were moving to the lovely lush grasslands of the Masai Mara, and there we were in the middle and seeing them, and I was in absolute heaven. And you know, the one man that I would love to be like, and that is David Attenborough. And David Attenborough is an expert on animals and on plants. And if you were to ask me, what would you binge on TV? It would be on his documentaries. Absolutely fantastic.
Right. Do you have a favourite book or movie?
Well, I've kind of spoken about books, so I'll talk about a movie. So would you believe it, at your age, I was probably a year or two younger. Do you know the movie that thrilled me most? And it was in the 1970s, and it was an iconic film. It was called Jaws. Did you ever see it? Well, I saw Jaws whenever I was 10 or 11 years of age, and I knew I'd never be allowed to go to see Jaws. But this evening, there was an electrician in the kitchen, and my mother was talking to the electrician, and I went in. I was about to say 10 or 11, and I said, Mum, I said, can I go to see Jaws? And she said, what kind of a film is it? And I said, it's a Walt Disney. And she says, okay, you can go. So I went to the cinema along with a friend of mine in the neighbourhood, and we went down, and sure, Jaws was absolutely terrifying. Jaws is about a great white shark, and it attacked swimmers fatally on the shores of an American island. And then the sheriff, along with a local fisherman and a marine biologist, the 3 of them got together, and of course their main mission was to kill Jaws, to hunt Jaws, and that's what the film was about. And I thought I was very brave being able to watch that whole film. It was really thrilling. But when I got home that night and I switched off the light, all I could see was Jaws coming up at the bottom of the bed. I was absolutely terrified. I had to leave the bed, I had to go into the bedroom where my 2 brothers were, get in between them, and that's where I spent the night. Terrifying.
I'll pass you on a Jackie here.
Okay. Yes, Jackie. How are you today?
Good.
Good.
What's your favourite thing about our school?
The principal. no. The favourite thing about the school is, do you know what I love doing, boys and girls? I love coming around for the 3 days at the start of every month and actually listening to the Gold Star reports, because I have one of the biggest responsibilities that's on my shoulders as a principal is to ensure that every single child is learning, is working, and is progressing. And those 3 days that I spend listening to teachers give me an individual report on your strengths, on what areas you need to improve on, that gives me a great sense of confidence, and I enjoy it thoroughly. And generally it moves into this lovely dialogue where the teacher is talking to each child and saying, do you know what you're good at? And do you know what you've really improved on? And do you know what you've really progressed in? And I'm looking at your face as the teacher is talking to you. So those 3 days are probably my favourite time in the month here in the school.
What's your opinion on homework?
Oh, well, when I was 12 years of age, it was a scourge. I hated it, absolutely. And I resented it because it meant then that you couldn't get out to play. But then I went to St. Eunice College, and I can tell you, when you get to secondary school, they certainly give you a lot of homework. I wouldn't have liked to have been in secondary school and to have started understanding how to do homework and then doing the homework if I hadn't got the experience when I was in primary school. And then, boys and girls, and this is not something you're going to understand, when I became a teacher, I gave homework to find out if the boys and girls could actually do the work independent of me. And if they came in the following day and there was, let's say, 15 or 20 didn't understand the maths, well, that told me I need to go back and teach it again or teach it differently. So for that reason, I'm a proponent for homework.
What's the most challenging part of being a principal?
Oh, well, the most challenging part for this principalship was, for 14 years, we suffered an awful lot of setbacks trying to get our new extension in our new school. And the challenge for me was to keep the hope alive. And I needed to keep persevering because we had the economic downturn. We had to reappoint a design team. We had lost one of our design team members. The company collapsed. There were new fire regulations which set us back about 2 years. So we had a huge amount of setbacks and it was very easy to lose hope. So the big challenge was to keep the hope. And that hope was kept alive because we had really good people working for us. We had members of the board of management, we had parents association, and the teaching staff were brilliant. So we kept at it and we didn't leave any stone unturned until we got the dotted line signed to get our new building and extension, which we're in today. But that was a huge challenge.
Yeah, that's all my questions.
Thank you, Jackie. Hello, Maya.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
What's one thing you're proud of that happened in our school recently?
Well, I could say that it's the new project and the new extension, which cost €6 million. Or I could say that we're getting a fabulous modular build now. It's costing €4.2 million. And we're going to have 2 new autism classes and 2 additional classroom classes. And we're going to have 3 support rooms. But I think what I'm most proud of is the staff. We have a fantastic staff and I'm very proud of them. They're very hard workers, they're very talented, and we have great teachers, great special need assistants, a great caretaker and 2 great secretaries. So that's the thing I'm most proud of.
Okay. What's one thing you'd love to see in our school in the future?
Well, do you know what I'd love to see? I'd love to see some of you coming back as primary school teachers. And I'd love to see one of you maybe one day becoming a principal. Wouldn't that be great? Yeah. Well, that's what I'd love to see.
Okay, I'm going to pass it on now to Jake.
Okay. Hello, Jake.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Is this your first time interviewing?
No.
No. Okay, so you come with experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. I'm just going to ask you a couple of quick questions, right?
Okay.
Right. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Alright, dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Morning person or night person?
Oh, night person.
Favorite treat?
Lobster.
Pizza or pasta?
Pasta.
Indian or Chinese food?
Chinese, but I'm beginning to really like Indian.
Fair enough. Books or movies?
Books.
Gaelic football or soccer?
Or Gaelic football.
Yeah. Chocolate or crisps?
Crisps.
City or countryside?
Countryside.
Rainy day or sunny day?
Sunny day.
And that's it.
Oh, that was very quick.
Questions.
Thank you. Hello, Owen.
Hello.
How are you?
Can I ask you a few questions?
Yes, of course.
Who was your favourite superhero when you were growing up?
Well, when I was growing up, there weren't too many superheroes, but you'll not be surprised to learn my superhero was Tarzan. Absolutely loved Tarzan, so I did. And then the second hero was a hero called Man from Atlantis, who had these webbed fingers, and he was a powerful swimmer. He could actually swim faster than a dolphin.
What is your favourite holiday destination?
Oh, Rome. Anywhere in Italy. Tuscany, love Rome.
What is your favourite song?
What is my favourite song? Ooh, gosh. That would be a difficult one now because I've got so many favourite songs. But I suppose one of my favourite songs is called Mac the Knife. Would you believe it? Yeah.
Can you play any musical instruments?
I can play the tin whistle. Yeah, I played the whistle when I was very young, and we had a little traditional music group whenever I was your age. Mm-hmm.
I would like to pass you on to Mikaela.
Okay. Hello, Mikaela.
Hello.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
What advice would you give to any of us who want to become a principal or teacher one day?
Well, I'm a teacher, and I'm a principal, and I'm a learner, and I have devoted my entire working life to teaching and to learning. And while I've worked really hard at it, it hasn't seemed like work. And I've over 30 years now, as I said, done in teaching. So I would say if you're the type of person who enjoys seeing others progress on their educational journey, and if you're creative and if you have plenty of energy, I would be saying it's a great job, because you'll be actually working with adults who are very talented, who are very given, and who are very capable of working as a team. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it.
What's the most important lesson you've learned from being a principal?
Well, the most important lesson is patience, being patient. Okay, it's a little like gardening, but when you're a principal, you have to at times sit back and make decisions that makes sure that there is fairness. Fairness to every single boy and girl, and fairness to every single teacher. So when you have to be fair, you have to be very wise. And to be wise, you've got to take time. And to take time, you've got to be patient. So my greatest lesson is definitely the need to take time to make decisions that make sure that everything is fair for everybody.
How do you stay motivated during challenging times?
Well, it always goes back to what your heart tells you. And if your heart tells you that you're in the right place and that you have chosen the right work, then all the challenges that come along, and there will be challenges, you will never be defeated by them. You will always overcome them because you're in the right place. And because I've been in the right place all my work in life, whether it was teaching in a primary school, or whether it was teaching in St. Eunan's College, because I taught there for a little while, or whether it was teaching up in third level or being a principal here, I always felt I was in the right place at the right time for me.
If you could change one thing about education, what would it be?
I would love to see more emphasis on creativity. And I'd love to see more funding put into providing schools with artists, with poets, with writers, with sports people, and with musicians, with technicians. So adults who have spent a lot of their lives in specialised areas like digital technology, like art, like music, like dance, like drama. I'd love to see that coming into our primary schools, and I think that's the biggest challenge now for us as a country, to start bringing in specialists to help give us experiences in those areas, because we're very good with the maths, English, Irish, maths, history, geography and science and SPHE, so it'd be great to see the additional creative arts coming in stronger into the primary school and indeed secondary school.
That's all my questions today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So that brings us to the end of our interview with Mr. Paraig Cannon. So a big thank you to Mr. Cannon for sharing your stories, your insights, and a few very funny moments with us today. So it was great getting to know more about the person who leads and supports us all here at Scoil Cholmcille every day. So we hope you enjoyed taking part just as much as we enjoyed hosting you. So until next time, thank you all for tuning in. You've just been listening to the Pod Squad, podcast brought to you by the pupils of Scoil Cholmcille, Letterkenny.